And then we are at the Mansard building sets. Those parts have been derived from the main part. We have lowered the pointed roof by 1 meter to get a 3 meter high mansard, then lower it by 2 meter for the 2 meter high mansard, and here 3 meter has been cut off, so we get a 1 meter high mansard. But those sets do not connect to the pointed roof style, nor do they connect to each other. These are 3 separate building sets. So what we have as parts, straighten ends, L-connect and T-connect parts. Straightened ends, this is a 2 meter straight part. Its end part, to close it off like that. Again, these straight parts are meant to be resized in length. They also come with one side off, like this. And then just with a single slope as well, like this. Then the L-connect to make a turn. This can be used with this single-sided. To make a turn that goes around the building or something. Like this. If you want to use it with a double-sided mansard part, you will have to insert a valley. Because we are limited to 8 faces, and these parts consume on their own already the 8 faces, the valleys come at separate parts. And the valleys, they can be found here at the T-connect section. And then we have a turn like this. Then for T-connect, the part looks like this. And again, we will have to insert the valleys. And so we make a T connection. And then there's also the option to make an X connection, a cross. Which looks like this. For the 3 meter mansard section, there are also a few cutout parts and 2 dormers. They're only there for the 3 meter mansards because the other ones obviously are too low for this kind of parts. And then finally we come to the tower roofs. There are 5 different styles. And then there's one in 4 parts. You can rest the parts out separately or all at once. It's linked, so you have to unlink it to work with it. And it allows for some custom shaping if you're looking for something special. And you can do things with it like this. A remark about the workflow. Building roof in 3D is much more complicated than building rooms with walls. So if you are going to make a house and you start with placing walls and make rooms, and then you start looking at what roof you want to put on it, that's a very difficult approach. It's better to have a decent planning to know what style and what rooms you want, but to make the roof first, in fact, to make a nice roof as you like it, and then place your rooms and your walls underneath it. Then a few words about resizing. You have two options. Or you're going to resize the build as a whole after it's done, or you're going to resize every part you need before you start building. So here we have a finished build. As ever with large mesh constructions, it's best to link it to a regular second life prim. So I'm going to Resi prim, then select all the parts. Make sure this one is selected last and link it. Then we can set the root transparent. Okay. Before you start, it's best to take a copy, a backup of this construction, so you can always go back to your original. And then we can resize this thing as a whole. But we need to keep in mind that there's a 64 limit to link parts together. So therefore I use this cylinder, which I set at 64 meters. Okay, this is the radius we have where we can stretch our roof. If you need the roof to be larger than this, you will have to divide it into parts. So as long as we stay within this limit, there's no problem. When I go over it, you will see it pushes everything back inside, destroying your roof. Then for the second option, where we can resize the parts before we start building, I recommend doing this by steps of 1/2 meter and having your grids at 0.25. So you can have half parts like the T-Connect end at 25 centimeters. First of all, we can resize on the horizontal plane. Say now this is 10 meters. Say I want to go to 15. I snap resize to 15. The L-Connect will have to be resized on both axes. 15. Like this. And then the T-Connect, well, this side is half, so 7.5 will it be. And this is a full side also to 15. Like this. We can also resize in height, but here we have to keep in mind we have 4, 3 and 2 meters as basic sizes. So best is to take something easy, an easy multiplication, like making this double high or adding half. Say I'm going to add half, so this is 4 meters, will be 2 I'm adding, will get at 6. And then the 3 meter parts will get at 4.5 in height, and the 2 meter parts at 3. Or I can double it, say I want to go to 8 meters, and then the 3 will be 6 and the 2 will be 4. And just resize all the parts in height. Like this, and you can start building with your resized parts. Okay, before I get to the use of the AO textures, I want to talk about two specific UV layouts that have been used on the roofs. First is here with the T and X Connect of the mansard, you have these intersecting faces. Let me show you. On this sphere here, you can take a UV mapper, which is always handy to see what is going on a certain part. So you have these UVs intersecting like this, which is handy when you have a texture like straw or something organic, and it immediately matches all the legs in this manner. But if you want this one straight, that's very easy to get there. Just rotate it. And then we have on the information button you have here, you can see here at the display this table that says what you need to set for horizontal and vertical scaling. So we are using a 2 meter mansard at this moment. So the horizontal scale will be at 0.626 and for vertical 1.597. So let's get back at the face here. Horizontal 0.626 and vertical 1.597. And then you have a perfect match. Straight textures. Of course, then the legs will need to be adjusted as well. The second case is with the towers. The towers have different sides and they share the same UV space. So if I apply a texture on one of the sides, it appears on all and at the exact same location, like this. Okay, let's talk about maps. There are 3 different ways to get to the maps. First is at the Resizing itself. When you touch a miniature, you get a menu, and here you have access to the UV maps of the part and the ambient occlusion maps that might be needed during building. First, you get the ones for the outside faces and then for the inside faces. And then there are those spheres that give access to the main maps. A lot of them are already applied to the parts by default. Then second option, if you look at the product itself, in our inventory, we have here the ambient occlusion bulk box. If you res it and touch it, we will get a folder with all the ambient occlusion maps that are in the system. This takes a moment because it's a lot of maps. There it is. 382 maps that are now all in your inventory. And this is handy because when we are building and we select a face and then we click on this texture box at the building window, we can see directly the name of the texture that is applied to the face. So this way you can select any face on your parts and see what is the texture that is on it. And if you want, you can double click this texture. So this is why the bulk box is handy. Of course, it's 382 items in your inventory, so if you're not using the roof system, maybe you can delete it. Then the third option is the maps provider. Here we have all the same ambient occlusion maps and UV maps, but in an organized manner. There are different categories and then the sections that are in it. If you touch a button of a category, you get an empty folder with the name of the category. Well, I had to place a note card inside it to be able to give it. But then you can take what you need from the category, the sections you need, and place them inside this folder and build an organized way of having the textures in your inventory like this per section.